hands of people that don't know the name Max DeWeese. Don't know Max DeWeese. Don't know Max DeWeese. Don't know. Wow. Max is a 100-year-old. Everybody knows Max DeWeese. 100-year-old Marine, Iwo Jima. I did that on purpose, Max. Guadalcanal, Saipan, Tarawa, and Tinian. Ladies and gentlemen, Max DeWeese is going to lead us in prayer.
Uncover, please. You don't need to rise. Loving God, as we gather tonight, veterans, friends of veterans, spouses of veterans, children of veterans, we pray that Thou would be with those men in the service and women, wherever they're serving, whatever branch they are in, because we know that they have been put in harm's way, and we only pray that that way does not turn into harm. And we pray also for those that are first responders that are fighting for our lives, whoever we are, wherever we are. And as we go from here tonight, may we lift our prayers to those that we know that need those prayers, whatever the case may be. Amen.
We're going to have Kevin Sanford, Chief Sanford's son, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please remove your caps and please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, well, let's get rocking on this thing. First of all, I'm Paul Chappa. Oh, what? We had another announcement. Yeah, Michelle is with Wreaths Across America.
And also the auxiliary VP at this post. Coming up this Saturday at 10 a.m., we are retiring the wreaths. We had 1,300 people show up to help us lay 5,800 wreaths, and I will be lucky if I get 50 show up on Saturday to help me pick them up. So if you're available, please come to Leavenworth National Cemetery. You can see me after this tonight. Bring your sleds, bring your poles, bring your tarps, anything to help us get them off of the headstones and out to the street.
Thanks, Michelle. All right. So we try and do this. This is kind of the fun part. How many Army vets are in here? Army. Okay. Marines? That's pretty good. Navy? Okay. Air Force? Coast Guard? Crickets. Space Force? Crickets. All right. Hey, a little history. And some of you might already know this. This month, the 16th, marks the 26th anniversary of the start of the Gulf War, second combat phase in response to Iraq's invasion of Kuwait. The code name was Operation Desert Storm, a massive U.S.-led air offensive that raged from 16 January 1991 through 11 April 1991. We need to thank our veterans that served in the Gulf War. Are there any Gulf War veterans here tonight? Would you please stand? Stand, be recognized. Thank you. By the way, this gentleman over here in the big Nebraska sweatshirt, that's Colonel Mark Morgan. Never mind. Mark says, never mind. One of these days, we're going to have you as a speaker, Mark. That's right, over at the fort. And his beautiful wife, Laura. Hello, Laura. Thank you for being with us tonight. All right, so here we are. A couple things that are coming up that I want to make sure that you guys don't miss. All right? On the 17th, the next speaker series, we have an incredible gentleman that is going to be speaking, a retired Navy commander, Navy SEAL commander, by the name of Bill Irwin. Bill was here for our Christmas with the troops. Who was here for the Christmas with our troops? Was that amazing or what? For those of you that weren't here, 27 active duty military families and 2 retired military families were here. They had no idea why they specifically were asked to be here, but we surprised them with $20,000 worth of gift cards so they could go shopping for their kids. We don't do the shopping for their kids. That's a blessing that I think belongs to them. So they got the money early enough that they could go shopping for their kids. That was an awesome night. There were a lot of former Chiefs players or some Royals players. For those of you that saw pictures online, that really wasn't Andy Reid. It was almost Andy. It was almost Andy, and it doesn't get any closer than that. So that was really cool. So on the 17th, Bill Irwin, February 17th, will be our speaker. But joining him on the stage is going to be his wife, Barbara. Now, what's so cool about this is Barbara is with the State Department. She's in charge of making sure everything is copacetic with Air Force One. So as much as I'm looking forward to listening to Bill, I can't wait to see what Barbara has to say. On the 17th of March, we have one of Max's friends. Max kind of introduced me to him. This gentleman, Smith DeVoe. Smith, a little bit about Smith. He's a retired lieutenant colonel in the Army. Smith received the Silver Star, the Bronze Star, 3 Purple Hearts. Samuel L. Jackson. Anybody know that name, Samuel L. Jackson? Played Smith DeVoe in the movie Last Full Measure. The movie Last Full Measure is about a PJ, a parajumper, Air Force, by the name of Bill Pitzenbarger. Smith, am I saying that correctly? Yes, that's Smith, ladies and gentlemen. That's Smith right there. So Smith will be our speaker in March. That battle was one of the bloodiest battles for 1st Marine Division, wasn't it? 1st Infantry Division. There we go. It was called Zacam. So we're looking forward to that, Smith. That's going to be an awesome time. April 23rd, I hope you guys are writing this down. It's our 6th annual Armed Forces celebration. It'll be at New Century. Last year's Armed Forces celebration, it was the largest one in 16 states according to the Army. Well, the Army's been engaged pretty much once or twice a month with us. The 23rd is special because it's very unique because it's the Army Reserve's 113th birthday. So it's going to be an amazing time. Last year we had about 3,000 people. We're hoping for 8,000 to 9,000 people. There's going to be free food, free barbecue, and it's going to be phenomenal. So you don't want to miss that. There's going to be a lot of surprises there. A lot of equipment is coming. Everyone is engaged. The 30th, we're working with our friends at Worth Harley-Davidson. There has not been a welcome home party, a welcome home parade to our Vietnam veterans in Kansas City that we could think of, remember. So we are doing a welcome home to our Vietnam vets on the 30th. So please spread the word. It's going to be a motorcycle ride, a Jeep ride. We're talking to the Army about a band, and we'll be driving them underneath the banner saying, welcome home. So join us. Be a part of that. The 21st, also with Worth Harley-Davidson, we're going to be doing the official Armed Forces Day celebration, which is usually in May. So we're going to do that there. And then the 13th of June is our 9th annual combat golf tournament. If you've not played in that or been a part of that, you have to wear body armor on a couple holes. You putt with a shovel. You throw a grenade. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of wonderful young men and ladies there that are encouraging and motivating you on the putting green, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean? Right. There's a lot of encouragement. Max DeWeese will not be one of those motivators. He will not be one of those drill instructors. We booted him off the drill instructor role because a lot of people are getting hurt and getting frustrated by what Max wanted them to do. So, also, as you guys know, there's a lot of equipment over here, and we now have a sponsor that they're one of the representatives. There's Susan right there. And this company, Truehold, tell you a little bit about it. They're going to help us out with this equipment. But they're the founder, after witnessing his 90-year-old grandfather, bombardier in World War II, who was shot down 9/11/44 and held as a POW in Germany. At age 19, he had to move from his family home to get access to his equity. So Truehold is a real estate and home services company offering seniors a better solution. Sell your home at 100% value and continue living there while Truehold takes care of maintenance. And Susan, you have brochures, right? Boy, I felt like a real commercial on that one. Very cool. What's that? 90. Yeah, 90. All right, so that all being said, now it's time for our speaker. Let me tell you about this gentleman, Charlie Gay. We have a picture of Charlie up there. Charlie graduated from Shawnee Mission East in 1961, joined the United States Air Force. And Charlie was a part of the Apollo 7 October 11th, 1968 mission. He was the first three-man Apollo Earth orbit for 10.8 days. He was also part of the Apollo 8 mission, Apollo 9, Apollo 10, Apollo 11. There used to be a point where the communication was lost when the spaceship took off. That young man is the guy that solved that problem. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Mr. Charlie Gay.
First off, like you said, my name is Charlie Gay. When I go to a restaurant, I don't say gay party of two because I end up with too many people at my table. They always think it's a convention. I have nothing against them. In fact, a long, long time ago, they came to my dad and when we were living in Utah and asked him if it's okay if they use the word gay. And Dad says, well, can you use rainbow boys or something else? But I guess it was better than what it was. But anyhow, I survived all that, having that name. In fact, when I went in the Air Force, it said gay on there, and I thought it was better if it was CB gay type deal. The B stands for Benjamin. It's not B gay type deal. So, but anyhow, I went to college to where the same gentleman back there with the orange and red hat, or yellow and red hat, that Pittsburgh State. I took the entrance exams, and the instructor says, answer the questions that you can answer, but guess at the ones that you can't answer because you won't lose anything more. So I ended up in advanced mathematics and advanced English literature. Okay, my math class was okay, but the instructor on the first day said, I give everybody a problem that I've been doing this for 20-some years or 30 years. I forget what he said. Wasn't good in numbers. But anyhow, he said that I always put a problem on the wall and nobody's been able to find the answer in all those years. So anyhow, everybody went to town on this problem, but I had a big remainder that was left over, a 4-digit figure, and I thought, what do I do with this remainder? So I subtracted the remainder from the main question, and the instructor says, does anybody have 8942? And I stuck up my hand. He goes, oh my God, the first one in 20-some years to get the answer. And he says, show me your work. And he goes, that's not math. I says, well, got the answer. And the same with my English literature class. When I got in the class, I could have swore there was Edgar Allan Poe. What other writers are there? Keats and Longfellow and Hugh Hefner. No, he wasn't in. But anyhow, I didn't feel comfortable in that class either. Type deal. But I took all the required subjects the first year because I didn't know what I wanted to do. When I was a child and cleaned the lint off of a record player needle, I noticed that those grooves can actually, if they could be read, could actually tell you what you're supposed to be doing. That's why everybody's fingerprints are different. Everybody would be doing something different. But I never did develop that process, nor the flying saucers either. But anyhow, my grades weren't doing too good, especially when the girl I was engaged to, she was actually a spitting image of Audrey Hepburn in the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's. And everywhere we went to eat, people would go, you know, that's so-and-so, the movie star. And just for the fun of it, I'd always go and give them one of these. But they'd still come over to her and say, can I have your autograph? And she goes, why not? And they go, who's Vicki Williams? I says, that's her real name. But it was fun to carry him along. But anyhow, I kept getting all these notices from the military to join the military, and I thought, boy, I'm going to get inducted. I'd better join up. And I thought, well, I really like the Air Force uniforms the best. My uncle said, my uncle in the Air Force says, if you can't swim across the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean, don't join the Navy, because that's a lot of backstroke, whatever you want to call it. And I thought, well, okay, so I joined the Air Force, and I asked, the recruiter asked me, what do you want to do? I says, well, I'd like to do a job that I could do as a civilian once I get out. He says, well, we don't put bombs on the bottom of planes out at KCI, so let me think of what else we have. So anyhow, he assigned me to do a dial central office equipment specialist. And I thought, what is that? He says, that's the equipment that registers the numbers that you dial on the phone. I said, well, that'll be good. So I joined the Air Force and went through all their training, had quite a time there. In fact, we were kind of on the swing shift going to school instead of the day shift. And so when we were marching to school, we would always have to go around these women Air Corps that were going back to their barracks. So anyhow, he would give us a column right and a column left, and we'd go around them. Well, one day he says, at my command, and wait for my command, and he didn't give us the command at all. We had a bad head-on collision with all these women Air Corps, and I don't know how much trouble he got in for that, but the girls thought it was fun. But anyhow, I finally got all my training and ended up at Vandenberg Air Force Base. Last month, that has really been renamed Vandenberg Spaceport. They were doing launches every week. In fact, a lot of times when the missiles would come back down, we would have rabbit the next day for some odd reason. I don't know what that had to do with the missile coming down and burning half of the base, type deal. But anyhow, I kind of knew my stuff real good, but I learned even more being in the Air Force. And then the other amazing thing that I told Paul was the switchboard operators called downstairs where the equipment was, and they says, we've got a problem. So I ran upstairs to find out what's going on. And they says, the base commander, General Wells, has his car waxed and washed every morning, and they always push his antenna into the fender, and we cannot receive a good signal. I says, well, tell him to pull the antenna up. They says, we're civilians. We can't tell the base commander what to do. So I said, give me your handset. So anyhow, I says, General Wells, this is General Tel, which is a part of General Telephone and Electronics. Please pull your antenna up. We're not receiving your signal. And then I hung up. For some odd reason, I think he called the air tower to find out who landed on the base without him knowing about it. Some General Tel. That deal. But always had his antenna up after that. It was kind of amazing, that deal. But anyhow, I learned a lot of electronics being there. There was a lot of civilian contractors that were training us on all kinds of equipment. So by the time I got out, I was kind of a high caliber person, but I went to work for ITT Federal Electric Corporation, and I actually hired on 50 cents too low. I think I was at $3.50 an hour, and everybody else was at $5 an hour. But that's how much money was in the old days. In fact, if you go on YouTube and type in the words, how much did Mr. Armstrong make when he walked on the moon per year? And it's actually $27,980, something like that. It's amazing. But of course they gave him cars and everything else. But anyhow, I just enjoyed everything. And then So I quit to come back to Kansas City to learn more electronics, and they were teaching me everything I already knew. In fact, I could have instructed the class. And but anyhow, I saw an ad that they needed a communications persons for the Apollo space program. What it kind of consists of is when our astronauts were circling the Earth, they're doing 11,500 to 19,000 miles an hour, which is equivalent to 5 miles in 1 second. And that's fast. But anyhow, they found out that they had no communications at all for 2 hours when they were over the Atlantic Ocean, and they were lost 2 hours every time they were over the Pacific Ocean. And one of the astronauts, and I haven't figured out who said it, but he said, when our crayons start to melt, we'd like to be able to talk to somebody. And so Goddard Space Center decided that we've got stations all over the world, but we need something in the middle of the ocean, in the Atlantic and in the Pacific. So they actually acquired they actually acquired 5 tracking ships. Let's see. Yeah, you can go. Yeah, this one's good. Or now this one's better. Yeah. Back up one to the girls. These are girls and myself that all went to Shawnee Mission East High School. The girl on the far right is called Clara Ma. She actually, at age 11, wanted to enter a writing contest and named the Mars rover Curiosity. Out of 9,000 entries, they chose her entry. And she actually got to sign the front of the rover. They embedded it in the steel. It's actually driving around out there on Mars with her name on it. So astronauts in the future, they're going to look at that and they thought, I thought this was a Chevy. What's a Clara Ma? But it's actually her name on there. She finished her second year at Yale this year, from what I understand. She still lives in Overland Park somewhere with her family. The other girl used to live in Overland Park. That's, she starting to lose my memory. That's Megan Cox. She's actually in charge of all the rovers up on Mars, which is kind of quite an honor to have, type deal. And then, of course, I was lucky enough to be in the Atlantic Ocean on the Apollo tracking ship, USNS ship Vanguard. And when I first got there, the ship was actually at a port in Quincy, Massachusetts. And it seems that the ship, when it puts into Bermuda, they've got a long concrete pier that is solid concrete, and the pilots that came aboard, he decided, or the city's paying him, to actually hit that concrete pier with the front end of the ship and rip a 50-foot cut across the bow of the ship in order for the civilians to spend more money in Bermuda. So anyhow, we actually provided the communications for Apollo 7 when we were in a port in Massachusetts, but we were still involved in that. And so we kind of got a nice deal out of that one, which is, we got a nice certificate that looks like this for the Apollo 7. And that was a fun time, but let's see, go through the ship that doesn't have the front on the front of the ship. One more. That one. You notice this one does not have a wheelhouse on the front of the ship. This is actually a T tanker used during World War II to take fuel out to the battleships. That fuel tank is so big that they actually had to cut the ship in half, separate the two pieces, and then pull the fuel tank out. And then they added 75 feet to its length and put it back together properly. We were always wondering which end to be on in case it sunk or split in two type deal. It's called, the food's on this end, but might be good on that end. Might float better. But anyhow, then they added this wheelhouse on the front of the ship, which is that nice big white thing over there. But anyhow, gotta get my pointer. Hello, forehead. Okay. But anyhow, on the it absorbs right into your screen. That's amazing. Okay, don't need that. But anyhow, they added the wheelhouse up front, and I thought it looked a lot better anyway. And but the military sea transport people that were in charge of it were painting these flotation units that are in the middle of the ship. In case the ship sinks, it'll automatically inflate itself and people can jump in them and be saved type deal. But it has so much paint on it, we thought it's going to go down with the ship. You better take a deep breath of air because you're going to need it type deal. Each one of these big dish antennas, if you can picture it with the ship moving, these would actually lock on the astronauts and had an accuracy of 3 to 5 feet at 189,000 miles away, which is amazing type deal. So, and then the other amazing thing is how many people have been in the Boy Scouts or involved in Scouts? Well, anyhow, I went to breakfast one morning. NASA's paying the food bill, and it was really kind of nice because, boy, they bought good food. But anyhow, for breakfast, the military sea transport person that waited on us, he says, do you want ham, sausage, link, or patty, or do you want snipe? And I'm going, wait a minute, snipe is something kids catch in a gunny sack for the Scouts. What is snipe? He says, it's a fish. I says, no wonder why we couldn't catch any of those things. They're in water somewhere. I says, I will have the snipe. But it still tasted like some other fish, which was, I thought he's just naming it that to get us to be inspired. But it was kind of amazing. But anyhow, the astronauts, when they're circling the Earth, like I say, they really needed communications. And so we ended up in the Atlantic Ocean. And when I got down to the equipment, I thought, wow, this is neat. What kind of equipment is it? And I'm going, oh my God, it's Siemens equipment. That means it's made in Germany and all the books are in German. I don't know German, but I did know a print from a print, so I could pretty well handle anything. And this is a picture of our communications area. That's me in the plaid shirt with the glasses. I used to wear glasses, but in 2015, my eye doctor says, you're starting to get cataracts. I'm going, oh, I don't notice it from this side looking out. But he says, I want to send you to a optometrist that specializes in cataracts. And it was actually a Dr. Wong. But anyhow, he says, you actually have a Christmas tree cataract. And I'm going, well, this guy's a joker. I says, do you see any gifts below the tree? He says, all I see is you and your family, and everything is well. And I'm going, well, what a nice thing to say. So anyhow, I finally looked it up. You can actually type in Christmas tree cataract under YouTube, and it'll show you a picture. What it is it's minerals that form on your cataract, and when light hits it, it reflects back like a Christmas tree. It's really kind of amazing. And so anyhow, I thought, well, now that I've got that, I says, I'd like to pay extra and have corrective lenses put in because I'm tired of wearing glasses. So in case you go in for cataract surgery, tell them you want to pay extra to get corrective lenses in your cataract. So now I see perfect close up and I see perfect far away. It's like a miracle. In fact, when he walked in to check me the first time, I was in his office again, and he says, well, how are you doing? I says, well, you're projecting some letters on the wall. I says, are those numbers or letters below the letter H? He says, there's nothing below the letter H. He goes, son of a gun, it says number 25. He says, you can see that? I says, I can't see whether they're number or letters, but there's something there. He goes, very good. Then he handed me this thing. It says, read the smallest line. And I read it like it was nothing, and he goes, wow. And I knew for sure that it was a miracle type deal. So that's one thing to remember. One other thing, medically speaking, though, I used to have a drug testing company, and I went to KU Med to drug test an employee that actually had his thumb torn off, but he stuck it somehow or another between two pallets when they dropped the load. And they brought his finger with him, but the doctor says, do you smoke? And the kid says, yes, I do. He says, well, if you continue to smoke, I'm not going to sew your finger on because it won't take because of the nicotine. And I'm going, that's important information. He says, but if you quit today and never smoke again, I will sew your finger on. And I thought, wow. So then I think of, geez, I've had cousins and uncles that have had heart surgery, and then it shows them smoking cigars and drinking liquor after that. And I thought, boy, that's all it takes is, things not to mend together perfectly. And bingo, they end up dying because of the nicotine. Okay. This young kid closest to us, he got into this division somehow or another, but he doesn't know anything about electronics at all. I don't know how he got in that position. And there was another guy that worked with me that was a big burly guy, and he was actually involved in the Democratic Convention break-in during the Nixon time or whatever it was. And they wanted him to be in a position where they know where he's at, so they stuck him in there. But he didn't know nothing about electronics either, so the pressure was on me. But anyhow, you see this tray here. To the right, left of that, there's actually a rectifier. So when I first got there at Apollo 7, I kept hearing this, instead of a click, click sound with the equipment, I was hearing a click and then a zzz, and I'm going, that's not supposed to be a sound. When it releases, pulls back. And I looked at the rectifier, and somebody who had left the ship before cranked it up to 105 volts instead of 48 volts, which it's supposed to be working on. So I turned that down, and luckily everything was still working pretty good. I did end up having to replace a bunch of contacts that were bent, but then I had the knowledge to do that, so it made the equipment even better type deal. But anyhow, during Apollo 8, let's see, go with that one that has that electronic, well, let's see, wait a minute. No. I got a call from Goddard Space Center, the guy who's in charge of all the talking for everybody, and he says, Charlie, can I speak to you? I says, yes, sir. And of course, I had the thing going over the whole PA system. He says, tomorrow we're going to send you a frequency, and you have to tell us what it is. And I'm thinking, frequency? The phone system runs on 48 volts. What do you mean, frequency? Type deal. But I says, okay. And so anyhow, I kept thinking, and then I knew there was a whiz kid on the deck below me that was repairing oscilloscopes and all this stuff, and I thought, wow, I'll go ask him. So anyhow, I went down there. He goes, I wonder when you were going to show up. I says, because you're psychic or what? He says, no, because I'm the only one that knows the answer that you need. He says, all you need to do is take this frequency counter and plug it into the circuit, and it'll tell you what the frequency is. I thought, wow, that seems simple enough. So I put it on that desk area, and Goddard Space Center says, well, today it's 1 o'clock. We're going to send you a frequency. Please tell us what it is. Well, anyhow, I'm looking at all these zeros, and this tone comes over, and these numbers are rolling. And I'm going, oh my God, I'm going to kill the astronauts. That's going to look bad on my resume. I says, Goddard Space Center, what happens if I can't give you a frequency? He says, the whole mission is scrubbed. And I thought, that doesn't look good either on my resume. He says, can you give us something? I says, well, the first digit's mostly a 9. He says, that's correct. I says, well, the next digit's mostly a 4. And I gave him 8 digits, and he goes, that's very good, but you might want to work on that. And I'm going, oh, okay, I'll work on that. And then he says, can you send me 1,000 cycles at 0 dB? And I thought, okay, luckily I know where that device is that puts out 1,000 cycles. So I set it to 0 and gave it to him. He says, you're 16 decibels too hot. And I'm going, okay, I'll work on that too. So anyhow, he says, we're going to do this again tomorrow. But he says, don't memorize your frequency because it's going to be totally different. And so the next day, or that night, I actually had a dream that if I had a volume knob, I could add the resistance that I need to bring that tone down. That 1,000 cycle tone was actually what they used to activate all the transmitters in the world. In other words, they'd go, doot, this is Goddard Space Center, do you read me? Over, doot, and then they go into the receive mode, okay? And that was what that tone was. And so it was critically important. So anyhow, I went to work on these white things in the top left. They're actually Western Electric amplifiers, and there's 2 little holes towards the bottom. Well, the second hole up is an attenuation knob. And the book says the attenuation knob is so sensitive you need to use a plastic tip screwdriver. I'm going, geez, we're out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Where am I going to find a plastic tip screwdriver? So I went down to supply, and I says, you don't happen to have a plastic tip screwdriver, do you? He says, yeah, I got a Phillips and a regular. Which one do you want? I go, a regular. So anyhow, I hooked my equipment up to it, but then I touched that attenuation pad, and it goes from 16, it jumps to 18, 24, 60, and you go, damn, I didn't even turn the knob. That is a sensitive knob. I do not need that. But that night when I dreamed that if I had a volume knob, I'd have it made. Well, as you can see, when I came back to Kansas City, I thought, I wonder what's on YouTube. But you can actually go on YouTube and pretty well find anything. But anyhow, I thought, is there anything listed underneath the USNS ship Vanguard? Well, bingo, they're showing this movie, and they show my work center, and as you can see, up here are 3 blank panels, okay? Well, I'm sitting at my desk. Those blank panels are these 3 right here, okay? They're blank panels. This is a picture of that picture. But anyhow, and then you can go back to that other picture with the 2 of us. Yeah, that one there. So anyhow, I'm sitting at my desk, which is over here, and I'm looking at the equipment, thinking it's just another day. But I'm looking up and I'm going, my God, there's a panel with 7 volume knobs. One of them's missing the knob in that top part, which is this part right up here. See the knob missing? There's 7 volume knobs. And I went, my God, where did they come from? It's like they weren't there, but now they are. Well, I got up out of my seat, ran around the equipment real quick to see what it was hooked up to, and lo and behold, they were not wired up to anything. So I laced in a 25 pair cable, ran that cable down, and wired it to some extra jacks. And I thought, wow, I've got the volume that I need, type deal. So anyhow, I had broadcast the whole communications with Goddard Space Center over the PA system, and the guy downstairs, I says, you heard what he had to say? And he says, yes. He says, tell the welder to make you a 2-foot by 2-foot shelf, hang it on your guardrail that keeps you from falling into your equipment, and call me when it's ready. So anyhow, I called him. I says, it's ready. And he said, he brought up the frequency counter, which was the bottom unit. And then he brought up a bandpass filter to filter out all those other filters that were causing that thing to dance and not tell me what the frequency was. And so he filtered that out. And then we bought some other equipment for the tone and everything. But anyhow, Goddard Space Center called us the next day, and he says, remember, this is nowhere near that other numbers that we gave you before. So here it comes, and he gives me the tone. I says, the frequency counter tells me that it's 1478, and gave him 8 digits. And he says, do you have somebody in this room? I says, what room are you talking about? I says, we're out in the middle of the ocean. He says, no, did somebody here at Goddard Space Center call you and tell you what the frequency is? I says, no. The only one I've been talking to is you. And he says, well, we've never had anybody hit it on the nose. He says, now, can you send me 1,000 cycles at 0 dB? So anyhow, he says, now you're at 18 decibels too hot. So anyhow, I said, stand by 1. And I ran the jack into my volume knob, out of my volume knob, back into the circuit. And I added the resistance I needed. I says, ready to retransmit 1,000 cycles at 0 dB. And he says, boy, 1,000 cycles at 0 dB. Now, there's actually 4 Apollo tracking ships in the Pacific Ocean, but there was only 1 in the Atlantic. And the other ships are going, how in the hell are they doing that? But anyhow, they all had T-tankers, and Goddard Space Center actually put in $52 million worth of equipment into each one of those tracking ships. So they spent a bunch of money on it. And then after Apollo 10, they actually did away with that tone with the talking. You probably noticed it, that there's no tone. But I put this little green speaker over here, it's actually the same speakers that they would give the housewives of the astronauts when they are listening to what's going on. And they usually meet at the home of the lead astronaut, the one who's in charge of the whole show. But anyhow, they knew that that was what they wanted. But then Goddard Space Center or not Goddard Space Center, but the people that provide them the communications gave them another speaker. And they says, well, why do we need two speakers? One was adequate. And he says, well, one of them is going to broadcast what the public hears, but the other one's going to broadcast what they don't hear, type deal. And of course, boy, it really makes those ladies bite their nails, type deal. But anyhow, on Apollo 8, it was, they actually lasted 6.3 days, and it was the first manned launch of the Saturn V rocket. Now, the Saturn V rocket is 363 feet tall, and it has 5 exhausts on the bottom starting out. The thing will do 25,000 miles an hour. The length, in the words of Buzz Aldrin, who went on some of the old missions, but he also went to the moon with Armstrong, and he said that the Saturn V rocket was the same length as an American football field. And that is what you call a tall rocket. They usually launch these things at 2 a.m. in the morning, but it lights up the whole area. You'd swear it was daylight when it takes off. But then it heads to the moon at 25,000 miles an hour, which is what they call really moving on. So, what color is the moon supposed to be? White? Huh? Gray? Oh, blue? Okay. White. But anyhow, they were heading towards the moon, and this was on December 21st, 1968. And they wanted the rocket to turn around when it got to the moon to blast its engine again to slow down to 19,000 miles an hour. But they wanted them to turn around on the back side of the moon, not the front side of the moon, because if the calculations were off and they crashed, it would ruin everybody's Christmas in 1968. Yeah. And the amazing part is there's actually a woman that programmed the computer that turns this rocket around and controlled everything. It's amazing. So anyhow, they got turned around and slowed down to 19,000 miles an hour. And they're supposed to circle the moon 10 times and take pictures. And of course, they were also curious about the backside of the moon because that's maybe where all the aliens stay. They're in little tents or something there, waiting to come and visit us, type deal. But anyhow, they were circling the moon, and then Jim Lovell was actually looking through a telescope, and he noticed because there's no atmosphere that you can see a great distance. And he started playing with the buttons that were with the computer because it didn't have a mouse. It had buttons you push. Well, anyhow, he pushed something like 1203, 4 digits, whatever it was. But anyhow, their rocket was not riding smoothly like a Cadillac was. And they said, Goddard Space Center, we have a problem. We're not riding smoothly like we were. And the woman who programmed the computer, she says, jumped on the microphone. She says, "Quick, hit 987." So we punched in 987, and he says, "It's stabilized again. We are now running smoothly." He says, "What was 1203?" She says, "You told the rocket that it was on the launch pad and that it was falling over." It was trying to upright itself. Because the amazing part is she actually allowed her daughter to play with her computer, and darned if she didn't put in 1203, so she knew what that 1203 was, which was quite a coincidence, coincidence that they both did the same. So that was part of that, and then of course they. This picture is the LAB. It stands for Lunar Assembly Building. They say you can actually get 2 Empire State Buildings cut in half and put inside there. That's how big that building is. And then somebody else did calculations and math, and he says, actually, they can get 4 Empire State Buildings in that building. Type deal. And then the crawler that takes the rocket out to the launch pad was actually developed by a woman. It's got these big, huge link tracks that just take it out to the launch pad, and it's really kind of amazing type deal. And but anyhow, let's see. Let's go to yeah. Okay, this picture here. This is made right here. I don't know who that bald guy is, but that had hair brats in. It goes to show you shouldn't allow your wife to pull out one every time you have a good time. So, but anyhow, there was a total of I think 198 technicians that were on this tracking ship. So I've actually got printouts of at home of one of the astronauts' heartbeat and respiration and everything, and it's really kind of neat thing to have. I guess I'd give him his heartbeat back if he ever loses it, which is kind of a nice deal. I guess you airmail it or something. Yeah. The other thing is the military sea transport people were keeping the coffee pot at a tremendous hot temperature. We used to get these paper cups because you didn't have time to drink boiling water in 15 minutes, so you wanted it in a paper cup. Well, it had those type of paper handles that unfold, and you can hold the handle, and it kind of hurts you a little bit, but not bad. But because of that temperature of that water, there was 4 of us guys that were talking in the hallway, and one guy was holding one of those cups of coffee, and we thought it's about time, and 3 of us stepped backwards, and he goes, "Hey, why'd you step backwards? I didn't toot or nothing." And we pointed to his cup of coffee, and of course it just comes unglued, hits the floor, splashes on his leg, and he goes, "Ow, ow." And I says, that's why we stepped back. But the other part was the tables had a 1/4-inch ledge going around them, and when you go on break and 4 of you sit at a table, if you've got the glass cup, you can actually watch this glass cup go back and forth on the table, which was kind of interesting. But every once in a while the ship would go further and it would hit the edge and spill on whoever's sitting over there. So, okay. How much time we got now? Oh, 30 seconds. Oh, okay. But anyhow, anybody got any questions or answers, better yet? Here we go. Yes, sir.
SJ.
What was your payment from working from NASA?
Yeah, I hired on at $4 an hour. And then they would actually give you hazardous duty pay and C pay, and then I was making big bucks. Yeah. Now, young man, one other question for him. Do you know where the biggest room in the world is? The biggest room in the world? It's actually the room for improvement. That's why you're going to school. And that's also why you're listening and paying attention to your parents. Because a lot of people, geez, they seem to be growing up without parents, or they're no more than their parents to start with, type deal. So, okay, we got another question. Okay, that blonde. Oh, there.
What would you say is your proudest accomplishment with the military and the NASA both?
Well, I was really proud of the way our teachers brought us up, and then the training that I had in the Air Force gave me no fear of taking on the equipment that was totally new to me, and yet I was able to master it. And of course it made me sound good because it was going over the whole PA system, and they're going, wow, he saved us. Otherwise I'd be beat up by 198 technicians. Probably be fish bait type deal.
On behalf of the Legion, I'd like to thank you for being here tonight. And as a tradition, one of the things we do, if you do not belong to an American Legion post, we would like to give you a one-year membership to our post. We appreciate you coming here tonight. And I do want to say, I'm sorry if I offended you earlier.
Oh, no, yeah.
I was thinking you were Navy because I kept seeing all the ships, but you're Air Force. So I'm a little confused on that, but I am Army, so what can I say? But please see me afterwards because we'd love to have you as part of our post.
Oh, okay.
One of the things we have is a Wednesday morning coffee group, and one of our members knows you quite well. So I'd like you to come and meet up with them. Also, for those that are, I'm going to put a shameless plug in here. Sunday morning, I'll also be helping with our morning breakfast. So if you'd like to come in for a $10 all you care to eat breakfast, you can order as much as you want. Come and join us for Sunday morning brunch. But thank you very much for your service and for being part of our family.
Well, seeing all you people, it almost makes me want to re-enlist again, because all of you are heroes and you all have something to say in your hearts too. And I like the fact that you believe in God and country. And I actually came up with a saying I saw on a truck, but I was trying to duplicate it through some Christian store. But it says that your being born is a gift from God to your mother and father. Then your mother and father give unto you the whole world to do whatever you want to do and be whatever you want to be. And what you do become is your gift back to God and country. And then I also wanted to mention that when you did go off to the military, your parents actually, whether they had religion or not, but they